They tell me I've only got 2 or 3 minutes, so I'm gonna be like Liz Taylor said to her 7th husband, I'm not gonna keep you long. All right, back in there was an attempt to start a Model A club back in 55 or 56. I don't know who that was. I've heard stories about it. Probably whenever I met Bill St. Clair and our Bill Cantrell and Curly Hensley and Carl McCullough. Probably when I met them, that was mentioned. I was working at a.
Can you hold the mic a little closer?
All right, is that better?
To the end of it.
Right there? How about that? Okay, I'll just hold it right there. I was working as a soda jerk at Walgreens at A. Harris Shopping Center, and 3 gentlemen walked in one day and ordered coffee and cake, I'm sure. Anyway, while I was serving them, something was mentioned about a Model A, and I said, "That's my Model A sitting out there on the parking lot." And they said, "Well, we were wondering who that belonged to, and we're thinking about starting a club. Would you be interested?" And this was in 1960, and the conversation went on, and they said the Antique Auto Club and the Horses Carriage Club will not let us join their clubs with the Model A's because they're daily transportation. So we need to start our own club. So that was, and then about, they asked me if I was interested, and I said, sure. I said, I'd be interested. So about 2 or 3 weeks later, they came back and told me where the meeting was. So I went to the first meeting there at Carl's house. And there was 25 or 30 people there, I guess. Second meeting was at Lake Cliff Park. And I'm trying to remember how we met at Lake Cliff Park. I'm thinking the word just went out. We're gonna have a meeting at Lake Cliff Park at 2 o'clock. Just drive around until you find another car, and that's where we'll have the meeting. I'm thinking that's the way it went. All right, then the rest of that year we went to people's homes. We met at Keys Park a couple of times. Then we found a permanent residence for a couple of years at Daugherty's Pharmacy in Oak Cliff. All right, the next episode was we needed the club newsletter named. Club's newsletter, it was I think the first couple of issues, and Carl McClellan was the editor. He was a printer by trade, so I'm thinking that it was only 2 pages, well, 1 page, so it would be 4 pages, so no inserts, and he printed it on his press at the house. And then from there it went to about 6 pages, I guess, with 1 insert. That'd be 8 pages, I guess. Well, the Quail Tail needed a name, so in one of the newsletters, it basically said, anybody want to turn in a name for the newsletter? And Bill Cantrell won that contest by default. He was the only one that turned in a name. From then, our first logo, I was thinking there was 3 logos, but I can't find the third one, so I guess we just had the 2 logos. And I don't know any information about that as to who designed it or how it was put out. First Christmas party was at the YMWC over on Jefferson, and it was a covered dish. We did pay a little bit to go, but it was basically a covered dish. Club meetings at the parks were just kind of a visitation. Is really all it was first couple of years. But pretty quick, we started talking about a Texas tour, or having a yearly tour. The Model A Club had a Texas tour, so we needed one also, we thought. So sure enough, in 63 was our first Texas tour at Mineral Wells, and it was a 1-day event. So,
Afternoon Club, I'm Al Malice. My grandmother bought me my first car before I even had taken my driver's license test. And the reason she chose a Model A was because in the early 60s, muscle cars were coming out. And she didn't want me behind the wheel of one of those. So she found me the most tame car she could. So enter my 1930 2-door. I believe it was an early 2-door because of the shape of the dash. It had 36 headlights, front brake drum was so thin the band had come away from the hub. And the battery was not square, it was rectangular, so it stuck up through the floor. One of my classmates had a coupe, and he was a member of this club. His name was Ken Jackson. So he introduced me to the club, so I joined in either 1961 or 62, maybe. 60 years, right, okay. So the event in the club that sticks out most in my mind was actually an event that I never made it to. It was a club tour going to Denton, I believe. I had my girlfriend next to me and a couple in the back seat on their first date. And how many of you are familiar with generator cutouts? All right, well, you're going down the road at highway speed and the engine turns off. If you ever had that happen, you know what it sounds like and feels like. And smoke started coming out from around the instrument panel. So I got off to the side of the road and we all bailed out because we were sure this car was going to blow up. So it didn't, so I went back in and got the tools out and disconnected the battery. Remember I said the battery stuck up through the floorboard? It made it easy, so that was probably the fastest battery disconnect in automotive history. So there we were, 4 teenagers between 16 and 18 standing beside the road in a smoking car. And along came another club member and stopped, the only one, and diagnosed the problem. All the wiring needed to be replaced along with the cutout, but he was in a coupe, no rumble seat. There was only room for one. So I had to leave my girlfriend and the other couple on the side of the road. We went into the next town, and I don't know where we found the cutout, because I guess back in the early 60s they were still carrying Model A parts. Got the cutout, the wiring, drove me back, we put it all together, made sure it ran. He went on to the tour, which he'd given up a couple hours of, and I turned around and went home. But that is the spirit of the club. They're stop, help, do whatever, don't leave anybody beside the road. That's the most important event as far as the club and the importance to me. Now, I drove the car through high school, college, and there's a little event called the draft that came along. So I went to the Navy for 4 years. The car sat in my parents' garage, jacked up under a tarp. I took the car with me up there to Michigan. I joined a club up there, but it turned out to be just strictly a social club. There were no workshops. The tours were real short. Everybody's car was perfect. There was no project cars. The one time I stood up and asked for help in a certain aspect of my car, I was met with nothing but silence. So that's why I say this is the spirit of this club: willingness to help and do whatever it takes. So I'm real happy to be a part of this club. I hope to continue, maybe not for another 60 years, but as long as I can. Thank you.
Okay, can everybody hear me? Yeah. I'm kind of loud. Anyway, we already had bought a Model A, and then somewhere along the way, my husband Don met Carl McClellan, and so due to Carl McClellan, that's how we ended up in the Dallas Model A Ford Club. And I thank Carl McClellan for getting us into this club. And I've thought about a lot of things in my time with the club, things I have done that otherwise I never would have got to do. One of the things was my manifold cooking. Charles Corey took us on a trip to Lake Whitney. Okay, there was a big group of us, and I think nearly every car had problems. So we drive a little way, stop. Drive a little way, stop, get the cars going. So when we got to time to eat lunch, our meat hadn't even began to cook. So we had a can of pork and beans cold. That was our lunch. We did find out later, if you were going to cook manifold, you should pre-cook your meat some. A little less a lesson learned a little bit late. But we never tried it again, had no desire to. So, another time that I enjoyed, I think Don Knight took us on this tour. I'd always wanted to drive a race car around a racetrack. I like speed. Well, anyway, we took the Model A's, got to drive Model A's around the racetrack. Don drove around a couple of times and he came back. He said, "You want to drive it?" Well, he didn't have to ask me but once. Here I go. And what a thrill it was. I just wouldn't take for that day. And I was the only lady that did it. Another one of my thrills was when we drove the sedan to the High Country Tour in Breckenridge, Colorado. Don had driven the mountains a couple of days. That morning he said, "You want to drive the mountain today?" Well, there again, asked me once, and I'm going. So that was a thrill for me to get to drive up the mountain and down the mountain. It was scarier coming down than it was going up, I will admit that. So that's some things I've loved. And Pat and Davis and I got into fashions, and I wouldn't take for what that has meant to me. I would never have done things that had anything to do with fashions had it not been for the Model A Club. This is Aero Fashions.
This is, yeah.
From 28 through 31. So Pat and I used to go shopping, and each of us would reach for the same thing, and that didn't always work out real well because we had to decide who got to take it home with them. I think we decided whoever touched it first. But anyway, I've loved that. And I guess the main thing are all the friends I have had for 59 years now of being in the club. And my family is carrying it on, and I'm so thankful for that. I have quite a few of my family belong to the club, and some of them are here today. And I'm just thankful for having known all of these people and meet new people. I met new people today that just joined the club recently. So it's been a good run, and let's keep the Model A's going.
I joined the club in '67. I had a 29 two-door sedan that I bought for $100 from a lawyer in Irving. It turned out he was one of those crooked lawyers. And I always said, most people are buried 6 feet below ground, but if you bury a lawyer 12 feet down, they're down deep, they're pretty good. Anyway, he sold me the sedan. It didn't have any seats in it, just had a driver's seat. And it turned out, he told me he had seats over in Fort Worth. I never could get them from him. And turned out the guy in Denison owned the car before he bought it. And seats, the guy took out all the seats and hauled milk cans in it. So be careful of what you buy. Anyway, I've got these things here. I always like tours. And I've led the club on a lot of tours over the years, and a lot of you have gone on those tours. These things right here, when we hosted the joint meet of Mofka and Mark,
08,
the national clubs in 2008, I was the tour leader for that tour. Well, we had 520 Model A Fords come to Addison, Texas, and 480 of them wanted to go to Texas Motor Speedway. So I had to figure out a way to get 480 Model A's from Addison, Texas to Texas Motor Speedway. And the national tours, the national meets, you have to have the grand tour on Thursday. That way they can have the awards band put in all that on Friday night, and everybody goes home on Saturday. Well, anyway, I've worked and figured that out, and figured out all kinds of ways to get there and stuff like that. And we had a workshop over at Lloyd Kerr's one morning, and we made these little things here, and they slide right over the rear corner of the bumper. And so I had 50 tour leaders picked out. And each tour leader got one of these for the back bumper. So everybody that went on that tour, I said, if you get lost, you just look for somebody that's got something like this on their back bumper. You follow them, they're supposed to know where they're going. So anyway, we made these. I went out to Home Depot and bought all these little yellow sticks that people put by their driveways, you know, with a little reflector on top. I bought every one from 2 different Home Depots. I cleaned them out. And we made these one Saturday morning out there at Lloyd's shop. And everybody who was a tour leader for that tour had one of these on the back of their car. But anyway, we made it to the speedway out there, the racetrack, had fun. This was on the last week of June. Well, you know how hot it gets, and we had people from New England and everywhere else down here for that tour. Well, I had to get water and everything, so I had a bunch of club members bring their kiddie swimming pools. I took them over to a park in Addison. I went to a Walmart over there, told the manager, I said, I want to buy 2,500 bottles of water, and I want to buy 1,000 pounds of ice, and I want to pick it up at midnight. Can you have it ready for me? He said, that's no problem. So I went over there, and I think Don Gullickson went with me, and we went over there and picked all that stuff up at the Walmart and brought it over to the city park there. We put the water in the swimming pools, then we put the ice in and iced all that down. So, and I told the manager at Walmart, I said, he said, anything else? And I said, yeah, I like about 20 shopping carts. He said, you're buying that much, that's no problem. I said, I'll bring them back. I won't leave them in a parking lot somewhere. So anyway, got all the shopping carts, and I had people come over there that morning, and we loaded all the shopping carts up with the water, with the ice water, and I had people going down between the lines of Model A's, one person pushing the cart, and 2 people handing water out of the carts into everybody that was in a Model A. So nobody had an excuse for being thirsty, at least getting to the racetrack. Now, after they got there, that was their own problem. But anyway, we had a fun day that day, and all these Model A's going around the racetrack. They even had 2 fire trucks out there, and you see a Model A fire truck trying to go around the racetrack, and of course, we couldn't go fast enough to get up on the slope there, you know, because we couldn't get up that fast. Those fire trucks were trying to get up there. But anyway, we all came back, and everybody that wanted to stay and ride in a race car, they could buy tickets to ride in a race car around the track, and we had some of them do that. There was a guy came from Norway, and he ate that up. I mean, he would have ridden that race car 3 different times if he had time. But anyway, that's what I did. I like to do the touring part. We went on a tour to Galveston one time, and Arlen led the tour, and I surprised him. I've got our son that works in a national lab down there. We went on a tour of a classified lab, and I've got pictures over there of that tour where we went in the lab where they were designing a new crew capsule to take the place of Apollo. So you can see those pictures over there. So anyway, that's just some of the things I've done over the years with the club. I've had a lot of fun, met a lot of people, enjoyed every bit of it. The car auctions, the tours, the meetings, Christmas party, club picnics, and everything. So that's it.
Alrighty, my name is Clark Clay, and my wife is Judy. She's sitting back over here on the second row, third row. We did join in '69. We grew up in Hillsboro, Texas, both of us. She's my sweetheart. But anyway, there was 2 people in Hillsboro that had Model A Fords, James F. Wooten and Maurice Craig. And Maurice Craig's wife worked with my mother, and he used to pick his mom up every day, or his wife up every day in this '29 Roadster. And I would be there, and I would admire this Roadster and think, man, I want to Model A, you know. And so anyway, they were always out of my reach until Judy and I got married. Well, Pat knows this. But anyway, what I like most about the Model A Club is the people and the friendship that you make here over the years. Ron and Pat Davis, they've inspired us. Her and them and the kids and grandkids are all in this club. And Winona Park's the same way. But I want to tell a story here about the first Model A I ever bought. It was a 1930 coupe. I bought it from a guy named Jerry Moore out of Fort Worth. I made this deal with him for $300. So I thought, man, I got a steal. And so I hauled this thing home in the back of a pickup truck, and it looked like, you know what. But a torn down Model A will fill up a garage pretty quick. And it took me a couple of years, I got it going, and I wound up having to sell that car, and I can't remember the year now, but I sold it to Gerald McNutt's mom and dad.
I think it was 1976.
Yeah, I think it was 1976. We sold it to buy a home. And I went over to Mr. McNutt. He was at the credit union over there in Irving, and he had told everybody in there what he had already paid for the car. And he came out to meet me in the parking lot, and I said, well, I'm going to help save you some money on taxes. I said, I'll tell him that I sold this thing to you for $300. Well, he had already been in there and told him what he was going to pay for it. And I said, okay. I said, I'm not going to say any more. And he went in there and he signed the deal. But he loved, I think he and his wife loved that car. And that car finally went to Fort Worth, Texas, to a guy named Eastell. And that car wound up selling for like, I think it was like $55,000. A Model A Ford, mind you. But anyway, that's pretty much my story, other than I've served as on the board here in the club. I served as a treasurer one year when Bob Jones was president. He told me that was enough. But anyway, my wife wanted to let me keep a checkbook. But that's my story. We like the club, and we're glad we joined. And
yeah, I joined as well in '69. I was in the Army at that time, and I was a pilot, and I was doing some training in Arizona before I returned to Vietnam. And I bought this Model A and connected it to my Corvette and drove it, or towed it back to Dallas. And it sat in my father-in-law's garage while I returned to Vietnam. And then I towed it up to Washington, and that's where it got restored. And then I got out of this service and said I was going to drive it back to Texas. And one of my Model A friend's wife, they'd been on a tour, she shook her head that I was going to drive it cross country back to Texas. That was the start of my Model A. When I was asked to speak, I went and got out my '69 roster and looked at it nostalgically, looking at people, most of those gone now, and looked at the list and looked at those folks and remember them. Like I know the club is now, folks that there was a lot of camaraderie and people that you could call and talk to and have help all the time. The club seems to it is the same as it was in those days. Now, memorable things I remember. George Tynan and I at Hershey, and we bought these star-shaped sunglasses, and we're walking around Hershey. Those of you that knew George Tynan, if you can imagine him with star-shaped sunglasses, we laughed and laughed at each other and looked at each other and laughed. That was a sight for George Tynan. I remember Marty Smith. Those of you that remember Marty Smith, Marty passed away last year. Marty Smith and I at Pate's swap meet, sitting there while it was raining. We're sitting in his camper, and looking at the stuff that we had bought, and I'm looking at the 29 license plates that I bought for $25, and all of a sudden I realized not only are they 29, but I have commercial license plates for $25. That dates all the fun times out at Lloyd Kerr's shop. Those that would come out, my wife Becky would say that's the retirement home for Model A people. All the folks that would come out and just hang out all day. That was like a job to Lloyd to get up and roll up the door at 8 o'clock, and at 5 o'clock roll the door down, and it was like quitting time. But those were all fun times. It's good to see the club continue with those same kind of memories for those that are newer to the club. The club hasn't changed at all.
I'm going to go a little different because there's one in fashion. My mother loved to travel. And as she got older, I took her friends one time to Jefferson, Texas. This was before everybody knew about Jefferson, Texas. There was an antique shop there called Millie's, and we bought a lot of stuff from it. Anyway, when I walked in there, there was this dress hanging up on the wall. A beaded dress. And I just asked her. I wasn't even into fashion then. Well, it had been bugging me. And so had the lady that was in charge of the National. But I said, I can't afford those clothes. Anyway, I asked Millie to get it down, and I said, what do you want for it? She said $10. So then I just went some more. And this is a dress.
Wow.
And it's been worn several times by different people. It's all beaded, and
it's see-through.
and well, I wear a slipper. They wore a slipper. Linda wore it. I don't think Jesse's ever worn it, has she? Jesse's worn it. Do you remember Karen Floyd?
Mm-hmm.
She wore it. Who else wore it? I don't know. I wore it.
Kenneth probably wore it.
The first time I only wore it one time. The only time I wore it was in Nashville. And they didn't judge.
I wore it 6 weeks after Jesse was born.
Yeah. That's when you wore, I thought you were pregnant with Matthew then.
I wore the other beaded dress.
Okay, anyway, that's what she wore. And it's still beautiful, but I don't lend it out anymore. Cause it's very fragile.
Yes.
But those dresses now cost $800-900 or more.
Wow.
If you can even find them. I don't look. Linda's gonna get all my dresses, I guess. Anyway, I've had a great time with this club, and it's so great to see all you people we haven't seen in years. I'm not very active anymore. I'm 92, so you know, you're not very active at 92. But I loved it. Ronnie loved it. We went all over the United States in our Model A, and even to New Zealand, and drove all over New Zealand in one of their Model A's. It's been a great club for me and my family. My son and daughter-in-law love it. My granddaughter loved it. She's been in 33 style shows. My daughter's loved it. I think she's loved it. And Matthew's got a coupe now. He's got Ronnie's last car. And he's gonna be in the high country tour, I guess.
Call the Denver Club.
What?
Denver Club.
Denver Club.
Denver.
He's gonna be in Denver.
Denver Club, Denver Club, because he likes it, he still likes it. But anyway, I just want to say it's a great club, all you new members, just go on all the tours, they're what fun, that's where you meet everybody, so, and have a good time.
I was real little then, anyway. I got to say something I thought of that Walona mentioned going on that racetrack. Gerald, who were you riding with on that racetrack that they went up on the bank?
Oh, that track. That was in Bryan College Station, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, I got lucky. I got to ride in Bob Willis's original junk car. I saw it over there in one of the photos. It reminded me of that.
Everybody stayed out of the way,
But it
because
was
Bob
so-
went up on the bank with it.
Well, I asked, and Bob said, yeah, come on, get in and go with us. And at the time, his current wife that he had then, said, yeah, get in. So I got in the back, and it was a dummy sitting back there with me.
George.
Yeah, and he carried out, so it was me and the dummy in the back. And I'll tell you, that was the most interesting ride I've ever been in, because I had this fear, because he had so much stuff tied on top of the car and all around it, that as he was going up to bank up there high, you had this feeling that the whole car was gonna come over. And they were just laughing, you know, him and her just laughing, and so it was, that was cool.
Nothing fell off though, did it?
Nothing
No,
fall off, but it felt like it.
I used to
Higher
ride
you
that car
went,
too.
the more it, especially a sedan.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So
I
y'all
went
look at
around
the
4
pictures,
times on
remember all
the
junk,
Fort
all
Worth
the other
track.
cars stayed away from it. But, I've been a member since I was 10 years old with Mom and Dad. I went with Dad, and I thought about what to say. And so, what's the club done for me? I played baseball a couple of years as a kid. I never liked sports. I still don't like sports. My daughter just sent me a little meme here recently for the Super Bowl. And it was some guy and his son working on the car. And the son said, oh, it's Super Bowl day. And the dad said, car people don't watch sports. And I don't either. I play cars. And people think, oh, you watch the race cars and the tracks and stuff. No, that's boring too. So anyway, my dad always worked on cars. So he started looking for a car in the summer of 1969. He joined the club first, which is what he's always told everybody to do. We met Bill Holcomb, 1969. His two-door that he was talking about was in the backyard. And my dad wanted a 29 two-door because it was the first car that he ever owned. And so Bill mentioned this last year, and he does remember. Bill, what was my dad driving then? What was my dad driving when we met you?
Ron Davis was driving a Henry J.
1950.
No
And if you
floorboard.
remember a Henry J, that was kind of like a Willis,
Yeah.
except it was a little different car, but it was a Henry J.
One of them
And
Sears,
Ron
too.
drove that
That
Henry
was an
J
old state, very similar.
everywhere.
But my dad always messed with cars. My mom would tell you when they were dating, he got speeding tickets every time they went out. My cousin, they had a 56 Ford when they first got married. My cousin was telling me last year, I didn't even know this, she's 12 years older, that he used to take her down the Yellow Belly drag strip in the 56 Ford. I didn't get to do that with him, I was one born yet, but anyway. But he always played with them. So what's the club done for me? Me and Dad did this stuff my whole life. And then when I was little, and I remember this, my mom had a friend of hers she went to church with, and the lady told Mom, she said, well, doesn't that bother you, Ken and Ron are always out in the garage working? She goes, no, I know where they're at, and they're not out running around the bar or something. And so she didn't care. And so anyway, I still play with this. The coupe that is going to my son was the last one Dad built. It was bought in 1970 for $50, but it was really, really bad shape. And it's restored now, put a new motor in it, and overdrive and stuff so it can go up down the mountains in Colorado. He's a member of the Denver Club. Denver Club's very, very active. They were out last month up in the mountains driving. And so I have friends all up in there. Oh, and this is what the club means. I was in Kerrville, my son was in Kuwait. And he had just sent an email out and said, I'm in Colorado Springs and like to meet some Model A people. 2 people showed up to me in Kerrville at the swap meet, and I knew both of them. And they said, oh, it was sent to us. When he gets back, he said, we'll take care of it. And so that's why he's backing us in Model A's, because everybody takes care of everything else. But anyway, I'm working on the coupe right now. I've got a new motor getting ready to go in it. And so Linda brought some stuff. So some of y'all I've known over 50 years, long time. So there's our wedding picture. There was 27 Model A's at our wedding. We were married for a month, and we drove my 29 pickup to Sturbridge and back. And so people always ask, you drive your cars? Yes, I've run over 100,000 miles all over the United States. And they say,
104 and married.
oh yeah, Linda said the hottest she's ever been, married a month. We're newlyweds.
And she got, what'd you get,
She got poison ivy.
poison ivy?
In Tennessee or somewhere, I don't know. We're in an ER up there
Like this.
in Massachusetts. But in '88, I don't know how many people from this club were in Sturbridge, Massachusetts. There was 30-plus cars, lots. I mean,
You
there was a
remember,
lot of fun. But, they.
Boats?
Yeah, but there was a lot of people in. If you haven't drove to the national meets, you're missing out. It's a lot of fun.
Oh,
That
yeah.
picture of J.B. Moses' car on the tow truck as a joke is in that photo album.
They
Oh,
were
she's got a
always
photo album right here,
doing
but
tricks on
We
him.
used to have lots of people driving. It's a lot of fun. Yes, I broke down. I lost 2 motors one year in the Great Race. I had people showing up to come help that knew me from out of state. We switched the motor out in Kansas and then lost the second motor going across the desert, got a rust hole in the cylinder wall. And I had friends in California waiting to, get me in the next day to get through. And so you're not gonna get stranded, but it is a lot more fun. Linda likes, just say she likes to drive. She's wondering about going to Williamsburg this summer, but anyway, we have a lot of fun and we still do. And I will end it with this. People used to ask me, what if you'd have married somebody who didn't like those cars? And I always tell them, why would I have married her? And so our house is full, and Linda, she says, we got too much stuff. She buys stuff weekly, antique related, and it's all that era for the Model A's.
Well, our first marriage was to Model
Oh, and she said this, we met at a friend of mine's house, and a bunch of us went out to the movies, and I met her, and I said, hey, you wanna go to the Model A meeting with me tomorrow? And she goes, yeah, we've been together ever since. And so, and somebody asked me a while back, a car that I have, when you asked about a while ago, they says, well, how does she allow you to buy this stuff? She was with me when I bought that car and told me to buy it, is what I'm getting at. So, anyway, we have a lot of fun, and I've got a lot of friends I've known for many, 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 many years. And I'll even say this, I'll not mention names, but one of my best friends passed away 3 years ago, and that was a non-biological uncle that was better than my biological uncles, is what I'm getting at. But lots of great friends. We have fun.